Hey everyone, UEBS 2 Hub here, and in this battle we have a massive Zerg attack, over 1 million Zerg, including Hydralisks. As you can see here, we have around 22,500 actually right here. We have around 500,000 Zerglings right there, 500,000 Zerglings over there, 22,500 Hydralisks up north, and around 20,000 Roach units. I would put around 10 or 20,000 down here as well. The problem is, just with these modded units, they get a little weird when you put more than one group of them a lot of the time. So, I mean, these are red Hydralisks, for example. Those are blue. Those are blue Zerglings. Those are red. Either way, whatever, right? And then we also have around 100,000 Terran Marines, plus a few siege tanks converted from, of course, Shermans. And we have some ghosts on the inside of the city, which will be coming out to help their allies. Now, that being said, this is a huge battle, and again, one that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Actually, I did a pretty decent Zerglings versus Marines battle a little bit ago, a few days ago, so if you guys want, check that out. Now, these are all stat accurate, so every single stat from StarCraft 2, I tried to put in here as best as I could. So these have the same exact health. Those have the same exact health. Zerglings have the same exact health. Now, of course, this is not going to be the same as StarCraft 2 because, as one could imagine, 500,000 Zerglings going up against around 100,000 Terrans probably isn't necessarily going to result in all Terrans surviving. But, of course, that's how UEBS 2 is. Now, when it comes to the Hydralisks, they do throw eggs. Now, of course, they don't have their spines that they could throw, which is what they could do in the StarCraft series, but it is what it is. You know, you have to function with what you have. Now, these are brilliant models, by the way. I mean, they look great. Like, really. Like, look at that. It's just beautiful. So, let's go ahead and just check. It looks like the Zerglings are still not getting any traction here. It looks like they get pretty close, but they really don't. Now, as you can see, I mean, they kind of die in a line in a weird way. So I'd be interested to see if the Hydralisks actually break through here. Not entirely sure if they will. Now, one thing I'm interested in, I might just go up here to the north and focus more on these guys here, because we have the Roaches over here. Now, these are heavily armored units, but one of the things with UEBS 2, of course, is the fact that when it comes to any sort of unit in this game, okay, there are the Roaches. They are putting down some level of hatred, but one of the problems is that, you know, all these units are basically just firing as much as they want, whenever they want, and that becomes a problem, especially when you start firing or having whatchamacallits here, which, by the way, I mean, look at these Roach models. Beautiful. But when you start having cover and a bunch of bottlenecks, so to speak, it really starts kind of messing with the jam, so to speak. But the Zerg have killed around a quarter of the available Terrans, which is pretty impressive in and of itself. Now, of course, the Roaches do have a relatively short range, so that's probably why they're not getting much into range versus these Marines. Let's go ahead and just check out other places here. Now, it looks like the Hydralisks have broken through. The Hydralisks have broken through up top. We have a ton of these guys, and one of the great things is that, well, I would hope that they can destroy those guys up top, but this is just kind of like how UEBS 2 is, you know? It's a little bit strange with how cover works, with how buildings work. You put as many units as you can to a city, and then a bunch of them kind of just go up top, unfortunately. It's not really something that you want all the time. But it looks like the Zerglings have made it through, which is kind of cool. So let's go ahead and just go check over here. I wonder where those siege tanks are. Again, those are converted from Sherman tanks. So if they don't look like siege tanks, if we actually catch a glimpse of them, that is probably why. But anyways, I'm just going to go focus, or run back down here to the south. But as you can see, I mean, these Zerglings. Now, I have all the humans on hold order. It just seems like all the Zerglings have pretty much died, unfortunately. And it looks like Wow. Okay, so the Hydralisks over here have survived, but it doesn't look like they're able to actually kill the units that they want, unfortunately. And it seems as though there are still a few Hydralisks alive, but they're more or less kind of focusing on the tops of these buildings, which is not somewhere where they can actually kill, which is a damn shame. So it seems like the west, I'll call this the west, and the southern flanks have more or less been completely wiped out. Doesn't look like there have been really any Terran casualties on this side. Again, I don't know where the siege tanks are, but we'll have to wait and see. But on top, on the north and the east, it seems as though the Zerg have actually gotten through pretty reliably. I'm actually really impressed. So it seems like the blue Hydralisks have made it through, which is pretty cool. They are throwing their eggs, of course, at these Marines. Now, the Hydralisks and Marines have a similar range, which is pretty similar to how it is in-game. I think they have the same range here, just for accuracy. Now, of course, like some stats you really can't translate all so well into UEBS 2. And again, this is kind of like UEBS 2's take on it. Now, when it comes to actual in-game units, like if you're playing StarCraft 2, of course, I would probably say that the Zerg would win against the Terrans, right? Like a 10-to-1 thing, especially if you have the Roaches in there to kind of tank some of the units up front. And then, of course, you have the Hydralisks and all that. Or actually, not even up front, but like maybe like within the Zerglings. And the Hydralisk kind of like somewhere around back or on the sides or something, kind of hitting the range. Now, that's not how it is in UEBS 2, unfortunately. It's just like, not very accurate. But we do have some Zerglings that have made it through. And they are killing these... Wow! This is kind of like what it would be like. That's actually really, really cool. Holy cow! That's what it would look like. That's actually really cool. Wow! I'm actually really impressed by that. That looks really cool. Now, of course, there's not really a ton of Zerglings, or Zerg left, rather. But I feel like the majority, or a very large portion of them, rather, are the Hydralisks, which have a substantial amount more health than the Zerglings. And, wow, it even looks like some of the Zerglings got through over here. Very impressive, actually. I'm very impressed by all this. But again, I've yet to see any of the ghosts, which again are modified units. Now, we do have a bunch of Roaches that made it through. Wow. Now, unfortunately, again, these Roaches aren't incredibly fast. I mean, they're not slow, but really the only thing that's kind of letting them get into range is the fact that, one, there's so many of them, but two, they have so much armor, but they do have a really nice attack, albeit it is short range. But we are seeing a pretty moderately successful invasion kind of going on here. Nothing all too crazy. I wonder how many of these Roaches are still left. I mean, there's a good amount. We started off with something like 20 or 25,000, I think, maybe 30. And, of course, we are starting to see some Roaches and Hydralisks fight together. How cool. This is so cool. Oh, wow. And they've broken through. Oh, my gosh. Look at this. This is absurd. This is so cool. Like, if you are a StarCraft fan, like, this has got to feel cool. In my opinion, this is really, really cool. Because you have basically a ground view of a Zerg invasion. Wow. This is just, to me, it's so cool. I don't know about you guys, but this is just, wow. I know I've said it like 20 times here. We have Terran Marines falling from the sky. We have a bunch of, wow. They're just going through the streets, just like nomads, rampaging through the streets. We have some Zerg, we have a combined force here. Zerglings, Roaches, and Hydralisks all fighting together. Now, it looks like they have found a large amount of Terran still left over here. Let's see. Now, I'm not entirely sure if we will be able to get kills pretty much with every unit or against every unit. I'm relatively certain that, for example, some of the Marines that are stationed on top of these buildings, like those ones over there, they pretty much are just invincible, right? Like, they're not going to be killed. But you have all these Marines here. Now, this is going to be a huge challenge. I feel like this is pretty much the last bulwark that's still left. And we really don't have too much that can be done here. Now, wow, there's still this many Zerglings? Holy cow, if only this was an open battlefield. If this was more of an open battlefield, I feel like the Terrans would not have survived at all. Is there... Okay, we don't have anything from that side, but we do have, of course, a bunch of Hydralisks that are actually making it through and are killing these Terran, which is pretty cool. Wow. Like, look at this. We have red and blue Zerg fighting together. Again, the reason why I had to do red and blue, I would have just done all red or all blue. But the reason being is because, you know, unlike the Marines here, so the Marines, they were made by a separate modder than who made the Zerglings. At least I think they were. And so what happens is sometimes, I'm sure it has to do with the coding or something, but with these Marines, I could place 4 groups of them, whereas if I were to place multiple groups of, like, red Zerglings, for example, it wouldn't let me do it. So I had to use the red and blue Zerglings, which thankfully the modder made separate groups of Zerglings, which is really, really nice. You know, so you can kind of do that. But, of course, that's why I only had 2 groups of Zerglings. I would have had 4 if I could have done that, backed up by Hydralisks and maybe having some Roaches up front as well. But this has still been a really, really cool experience, albeit, again, through the lens of UEBS 2, because there's only so much you can do in this. Like, if this was StarCraft 2, like I said, I think that the Marines or the Terran would have lost by now. And I think it's pretty safe to say that the siege tanks and also the ghosts on the inside of the city have died. Just kind of a feeling that I have. But these Marines, the Terrans, they are dying pretty quickly. I mean, again, very interesting. So we still have a pretty large amount of Zerg left. They are filtering. It looks like this is more or less the final battle here. But I don't really think that we're... Oh, wow. Whoa. Okay, there's still a lot. I think the vast majority of what we have left here are Zerglings, and they're pretty much all here, unfortunately. And just because the AI in this, I know, like, I could technically do RTS mode, but I'm not, just because I don't feel like that would be as authentic. Like, pretty much, if I was in RTS mode, you know, UEBS 2, video maker, creator, then I would probably put that, you know, whatever. I feel like you have to go the entire video as RTS or not. And I guess it would probably be somewhat, it would make sense, being that this is, again, a StarCraft 2 fight. But, in this instance, I think that's just really, really cool, seeing how this naturally plays out through the engine and brains of UEBS 2. But the Zerg have killed the majority of Terran. We are seeing, it looks like the Roaches are getting in. There are... It looks like almost there are more Roaches at this point than there are Hydralisks, which kind of sucks in a way, because while the Roaches are very, very strong, they're the toughest unit pretty much here that's still alive, again, assuming that the siege tanks are gone. The problem with them is that they have close range, and the thing with UEBS 2 is, as you can see, pretty much all of these Marines are attacking at once, which, you know, it's like, it's kind of how StarCraft 2 is, but not really, if you know what I mean. StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2, doesn't really matter. Of course, I think StarCraft 2 is probably technically a better game, but StarCraft 1, man, like, back when I was playing that, I think when it, like, a few years after it came out, like 99, 2000 is probably when I started playing it. And this is just great, you know? I mean, you're talking seeing a Zerg invasion from the streets. And it's just, it's crazy. Like, this is, like, you know, I haven't played StarCraft 2 in a while, or StarCraft in a while, but, or at least the story. But wouldn't this be kind of akin to the invasion of Core Hall, I believe? This is kind of what it would be like. I mean, of course, it'd be a little bit different. And it's not nearly as cool as that StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm cinematic. The opening cinematic where the freaking Ultralisk breaks through the ground. Wouldn't that be such a cool tank or unit to have in here? The Ultralisk. But it is pretty cool still. Now, we do have some Roaches, it looks like, still alive over here. A lot of them actually still alive over here. Oh no, those are Zerglings. Seems like Zerglings are still pretty decently alive, but once this group of them kind of dies, I don't really see much left. Now look at these models. Don't they look so great? Like, wasn't it so cool before? And they kind of look like little chicken spiders in a way, mixed with like the head grabbers from Half-Life 2. Or Half-Life, I guess. But wasn't it so cool seeing them, like, attacking the individual Terrans? Like, that's kind of how it would be like, and that's how it was, kind of, in StarCraft 2. Or in StarCraft. It's just so cool. Like, this whole thing is just kind of, like, giving me... Like, if StarCraft 2 was modded, this is kind of what it would be like, in a way. Kind of. Not entirely, but, like... This is kind of what it would be like. Like, this is kind of like the ultimate custom map in a way. And it's just, I don't know. To me, it's just so cool. Just so cool. So I think at this point, the match has gone on for quite a while. I think it's pretty safe to say that the Terrans have won. You know, albeit, I think for two reasons. One, because... they are kind of entrenched here, and you have a lot of them in more or less invulnerable positions up top. Two, I think it's because like units like Zerglings, for example, they just die a little bit too quickly, despite being stat accurate, which kind of sucks. And three, Marines are pretty much the best overall like unit, like in my opinion, massing unit in game. Just like in terms of cost, overall capability. They can pretty much do anything. You know, attack air, ground, whatever you need them to. They have decent damage. Not a lot of health, but especially in StarCraft 2, once you start upgrading them, they become really, really good. And I think that's more or less kind of like what we saw here in this instance as these final few hundred or thousand. Ooh, we're going to see the last Zerglings kind of filter through here. That's really cool. But, you know, it's just kind of one of those things where I just feel like Marines in StarCraft 2 have always had a warm place in my heart. You know, they're just such a cool unit. You know, maybe it's because the first... Oh, wow, they actually got to attack some. That's really impressive. But it seems like almost pretty much every kill here was with ranged units. The Zerglings didn't do much, unfortunately. Of course, there were some really cool scenes from the inside of the city when the Zerglings actually made it through, but it doesn't appear as though there's really all too much left here. I'm wondering where the last Zerg are, aside from those ones that we saw, because this just doesn't make much sense here. Where in the heck would they be? I wonder if they're still filtering in, because we still have a few hundred of them. Oh, you know what? There's a bunch over here. Look at this! There's a bunch of Hydralisks! I didn't even know this was happening! But of course, they are facing the impenetrable walls that we have in the city here. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how this is. Just, I don't really know if this is gonna end. This battle, if it does, it's gonna take forever to get these last few, you know, Zerg killed. But this is pretty much the last chunk here. If this was an actual StarCraft match, you would see these guys being crushed pretty much outright. But, of course, this is not StarCraft or StarCraft 2. And they are throwing eggs at a building in the middle of a city. So that being said, thanks so much for watching. As much as I really would love to let this one play out, I just think that UEBS 2 is probably not going to let us play it out, at least in any sort of timely manner. This will probably end up being like another 30 minutes. So, either way, thanks so much again, guys. And, well, I think it's pretty safe to say, whether you like it or not, the Terrans have won here, but in StarCraft 2 or StarCraft 1, with this many units going after each other, I would probably put my money on the Zerg. But, again, thanks for watching, everyone. And, well, see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.